Hello everyone, in this tutorial we will be talking about redirects. We will use Sitecore interface to manage all redirects in our system. So we will create a redirect in Sitecore, we will create a webhook that will notify our system that we've modified something. In our case it will be an Azure function. We will use Azure function to connect to Redis Cache and keep our Redis Cache up to date, where we will store all our redirects so we can quickly validate from the front-end application whether we have a redirect for the given URL. So let's log into Sitecore, let's create a redirect, let's create a webhook, and then we will move on to Azure Function, where we will connect to Redis and we will store all our redirects in Redis Cache. To create a redirect in Sitecore, we have to navigate to our website, and then under settings we have redirects, where we can insert a new redirect map. You can rename it, you can give it a name, so you, for example, group your redirects into sections, and under redirect map we can add our redirects. So for example, from home I want to redirect to home test redirects, and I can add additional redirects if I wanted to. So there is a number of lines where you can store all the redirects, so you can group them by 100 redirects, for example, 200 redirects. It doesn't need to be just one redirect per item. And from this section, we need to grab our template. So we will be configuring our webhook, trigger, and notify our system every time we change and modify items that have been created from a specific template. And in our case, it will be redirect map. So we need to remember where to find this template. Template ID, you can basically search to find this template by ID. So basically, we will be creating a webhook that will only listen and will call our endpoint when an item with this specific template has been modified. Now we need to configure our webhook. So we need to navigate to System, Webhooks, and again we can create a new item, which is a webhook event handler. I have a separate video about webhooks, so I won't be going into detail in terms of what kind of security settings you can configure, but the configuration that we need for our webhook to notify our system when we change redirects will be using save. You can have publish and a couple of other things, but for our implementation I will be using item saved. So every time I save the item, of course, in the future you will be also adding item deleted, and you can implement the full flow in terms of if you delete the item, you want to remove your redirects from your cache. But for now, for this example, I will be just using Sitecore item saved event. And here we've got rules. So in terms of rules, we will be configuring just one rule. And as I mentioned earlier, we will use template redirect map as a trigger. So we will be telling Sitecore to send a notification to our endpoint every time we modify items that have been created from the redirect map template. And basically you can add a number of rules here. You can specify multiple templates, multiple rules, but if we find our template, as you can see where the item template is, and then you can select the template you want to assign here. So the last thing that we need to configure is the URL. There are a few things that you can use for this integration. You can use webhook site. I will show you how to use it to preview the JSON that Sitecore is sending, or you can use nGuard to connect to your Visual Studio, and then you can debug this end to end, but I will show you this in a second. We need to go to the webhook site. I've got this open here. As you can see, this is my URL. I can copy this URL. This is your unique URL, and once you paste it here and save it, you can then go to redirects. If you change the redirect, one of the redirects, if you save the item, the notification will be triggered. So let's go ahead and change something so we can then see the notification and the full JSON in our webhook site. So now if I change something, if I add a new item, a new redirect, it's not a new item, it's a new redirect that I'm adding to the same item in Sitecore. If I save it, Sitecore will send a notification to my endpoint. And as you can see, we have a full JSON that Sitecore is sending every time you change an item. So now we can use this JSON and extract all the details. We can create a model that will represent this JSON. So then we can talk to our Redis cache and update our redirects. If you want to quickly convert this JSON to C# classes, you can use converter JSON to C# classes online, and this will quickly extract classes and hierarchy in these simple classes. You can add also JSON property attribute, and you can then tidy it up and use it in your implementation so that you don't need to type all the properties manually. So now if we take these classes and we use them in our implementation, we can then take the JSON that Sitecore is sending, we can map it to our classes, and we can easier work with our properties, compare them, and update Redis. So this is my Azure Function implementation. I explain all the details, everything that I have here. We'll start from Sitecore webhook model. So this is the set of classes that I copied from the converter I showed you. I changed some names, I removed a couple of things to make it easier for me to read and only focus on things and properties that I want to. So I have all the structure of the JSON that the Sitecore is sending. Then I have my redirect item. So this will be a model that I will be storing in Redis, and I will be also sending this directly to the front end, bypassing basically if I find something without extra time to convert it into a different model. So I have source and destination. You can add, if you wanted to, maybe response type, response code 301, 302. But for this example, I will be only storing source and destination. And then I have my functions. So I have two functions. This one, well, let's start from the other one, because this is the first one that will be called when Sitecore will notify our system that there is a change. So what I have here, I have a connection to Redis, and it's starting somewhere here. So we've got connection to my Redis. I have Redis in Azure. I created a resource. So I created a Sitecore cache for Redis. This is one of the resources that you can select when you are creating a new resource in the portal. My name is Sitecore redirects, but I will be using this resource and Redis. It will act as my Redis cache, and I will be storing all my redirects in Redis here. So the second resource that I'm using for this example is Azure Function, and again, name Sitecore redirects, but it's a different resource, and I'm using this because I want to deploy and push all my local implementation to Azure to check the performance and see how everything is working together. In terms of deploying my changes from local Visual Studio, you can simply grab the profile from here. You can download the file, and then I will show you in a second how to add it to Visual Studio and deploy from Visual Studio directly to this resource with just few button clicks. All right, so we are back in Visual Studio. So this is our connection to Redis. I'm storing Redis connection string in my local settings, which is here. It's a variable, so it's like a JSON format where you specifying value and the variable and the value. Actually, I can show you how to add this variable to Azure as well, because you can add it as a variable and control this per environment if you wanted to. So let's go ahead and see how to use it. So in Azure, so this is the function I was showing you earlier, and here if you go to settings, environment variables, so as you can see I've got Redis connection string, and this is my value. You can basically add a new variable here by specifying the name and value, and that's how you can control these variables and change them if you wanted to. In terms of our implementation, well, we are basically retrieving a webhook, then we are deserializing this JSON string to our object, and we are doing some sort of checking if there are some, like, I will show you in a second when we will be debugging this. I've got a breakpoint here, so I will use postman for now to trigger this function, and we can see what details we are extracting from the JSON and what I'm comparing here. But basically, this is an object that stores a property that stores old redirects. These are new redirects. I'm reading this from these fields, and then I'm basically extracting these redirects and creating a list of redirects I want to delete, redirects I want to add, redirects I want to update. Again, this is an example. Don't use it as like a final implementation. You can, because this is a simple function that is standalone function, but this function can be created and added to your bigger project and act together with some other elements. So I'm just showing you, some steps and how to read these elements and what you can do to simply control it. But But in here, as you can see, I've got for each, simple for each loops where I'm adding something to Redis, I'm deleting something from Redis. You can create some sort of list of tasks, and then at the end, once you have all these tasks, run them and await them. But again, for this example, I just wanted to show you so it's easier to read and easier to understand what we are extracting, what we are getting from Sitecore. So now I'm going to run this function so we can debug this, and I will use the JSON that I received from in here from Sitecore. This is the notification that was triggered when I changed my redirects. I will use this JSON. I will use Postman to send this JSON to my endpoint when I'm running this Azure function. So I'm going to run it locally. I've got two endpoints. One is to get redirects. We haven't talked about this yet. And I've got the API webhook. This is the one that I will be using. So I'm going to jump to Postman. So as you can see, I've got two endpoints. So this is the get redirect test, but we will get to it in a second. So this is the one that I will be testing. So if I paste the JSON that I received, I will be able then to send it to my application. And my application, as you can see, the breakpoint in line 21, application stopped at this point. And if I go continue, the body, as you can see, is JSON string, and then I'm deserializing this into my object. So I have my changes, I have the file, the field ID. This is the field ID that I kind of hard coded somewhere, yes, here. So I'm only working with this field, specific field, and changes. I will be reading changes from that field. And as you can see here, we've got our original value, which was before we saved changes. So we only had home, a redirect from home to home test redirect. And in value, this is our new value. It's one redirect, the first one, home to home test redirect. And we have the second redirect, home one to home test redirect one. And this is the structure, the way Sitecore is storing value in that field. I'll show you in a second how to quickly upload all the redirects from Excel file. But for now, let's just extract this into a collection of redirects where home will be our source and home test redirect will be the destination. And we want to have two objects in our collection because we have two redirects. So if we continue, this is our collection with original values, which is source home, home test redirect, and this is a collection of new redirects. As you can see, two objects, source with home, home test redirect, and the second one is home one to home test redirect one, which is great. And then if I go to and extract what I'm going to update, add and delete, and hopefully I'm not going to delete anything. So in this part, we will be extracting and comparing basically and figuring out what to delete, what to add, what to update. And in this section, we are connected to the database and looping through these collections. We are adding, deleting, and updating values. So if I run this to the end, and if we check our Postman response, it's 200, the Azure function processed everything, and I can quickly test now. Let's check home first. So this is again my Azure function because it's my local host. As you can see, I don't have a breakpoint there, so we are not stopping in the Visual Studio debugger. We are getting a response directly from Visual Studio. So we've got source and destination. And if I do home one, we should get home one redirect as well. And if I do home two, it doesn't exist, so we are getting 404 because that was my response and my implementation of that function. The redirect doesn't exist. I'm returning 404 basically. And we can quickly have a look at that implementation. So get response, get redirect, sorry. So I'm sending a source as a query string parameter, and then after connecting to after connecting to Redis Cache, I'm checking if I have a redirect for the given source. So now we have a working local environment where we can use Postman to send JSON notifications. We are extracting it, we are sending this to Redis. The next useful thing that you may want to do, especially when you will be debugging and making sure that you are storing and updating your redirects, and especially when you will be working with thousands of redirects, because this implementation will allow you to store thousands of redirects in Sitecore and then in Redis Cache. It's to install Redis Insight, and this is something that you can download from Redis website, and by clicking download, I think you have to provide some, when you click download, I think you have to provide some details, but basically you can download it for free, and it's called Redis Insight. Once you install this, you can create your connection. So to add your connection, basically you are clicking add Redis database, and you're specifying the URL from Azure portal. The port will be different. I think by default you will get 6380. This is your name. This is the name of your database. So this will basically appear here. And you don't need to provide username. You need to provide password. And in my case, I needed to use TLS with no certificate. So just like this. But one more thing that you may need to do, I'll show you in a second. Let's jump into Azure, because by default probably you won't be able to connect to your database until you configure firewall. So as you can see, Sitecore Redis, this is my Redis configure Redis resource in Azure, and under settings firewall you can add your URLs. So you have to add your IP address, and also when you will be connecting your Azure function to your Redis, you need to add all the IP addresses from your Azure function. Otherwise, Azure function will not be able to connect to Redis. So basically, you need to click add and specify all the ranges and IP addresses for your Redis Cache firewall. Once you configure firewall, then you should be able to connect, basically, because that's what I did. And now I can connect to my Redis. And as you can see, if I refresh, I have 2 entries. So it's very useful for debugging, for checking if everything has been stored correctly and verifying your IDs and redirects. So I've got home to home test and home 1 to home test redirect 1. So the next useful tool that will help you to debug this configuration, this kind of implementation, where we have Sitecore redirects, we have Sitecore webhooks, you have your local function that is a listener for these webhooks, and it's updating Redis when something is sent to it, to help debug this infrastructure, because we know that Sitecore is sending webhooks and notifications to a specific URL. You have your local Azure function running, so we need to create some sort of tunnel that will allow you to specify a URL in Sitecore redirects that will then send requests and notifications to your local instance. And we can use ngrok to do this. You can go to the website, you can create a free account, and these are steps in terms of installing. Well, basically you need to download it, you need to add it, extract it. There will be an exec file, and you need to follow these instructions, like 2 commands that you need to run. And this is the final one that I will be running, specifying my local host being the one that I have for my function. And this little application will generate a URL, a tunnel that will allow me to use the URL that will be created by this app and use this in my Sitecore webhook configuration. So let's have a look. So I have this application in my program files, and I'm going to run this command, which is creating a tunnel to my local host 7251. And now if I take this URL that was generated, and if I use it in my Azure function, it will allow me to kind of redirect these notifications to my local host. And apart from the main, I need to also add specifics like this API webhook. So now if I use this URL and paste it here, including my API webhook, because this is the endpoint I want to send my notifications to, and I save it, this should now trigger our breakpoint in our local Visual Studio when I save something if I change something and save changes in my redirects. So let's have a look. And what we can change here. So if I change this example to 2, as you can see, my breakpoint is triggered, line 25. And if we take a look at the body of it, maybe that's not the best object to investigate. This one will be much better. And our original value. So original value was home1 and redirect 1. The new value is home2 and redirect 2. So as you can see, by using this little tool, you can create a tunnel and investigate webhooks locally, debug these webhooks locally. So it's much easier and convenient, more convenient basically in terms of testing, debugging, and creating these kind of implementations. Now, in terms of adding multiple redirects to your system, let's imagine that you have this implementation, you've got redirects map with 1 or 2 examples, you have Azure Function, you deployed everything, it's working, it's been tested, but now you have most of the time you will receive Excel file with thousands of redirects, and you need to upload it to Sitecore and basically populate all these fields. So the easiest way to do it is to basically work with raw values in these fields. And this is the field that will include all the redirects that you have in your redirect map item. And if you go back to the recording, and if you go back to the point in the video where I was debugging the webhook that was and the JSON that was sent by Sitecore, the field that I was basically extracting and analyzing was one specific field. And this field contains all the redirects that I have in Sitecore. So I've got home, and this is the structure of this field, which is home, redirect to home, redirect, and means that this is the next redirect from home2 to home test redirect 2. So basically you can create in an Excel file, because in Excel file you probably will receive one column which will be source, second column will be your destination, and there will be like 1,000 of rows. And so by having this in Excel file, you can easily create this type of structure of one long string from Excel file and basically copy and paste it here. If you copy and paste it here and you save your changes, let's do a little test. So if I do and 3 and 3, if I save it and change to normal view, as you can see, I've got 2 and 3 entries now: home, home2, home3. And so basically from Excel file, you can extract that long string once you know the structure of it, and you can copy and paste it here and quickly populate hundreds of URLs and add it to your Sitecore items. All right, so let's deploy our function now to Azure, and let's check how quickly Azure and my setup will reply to me in terms of whether I have a redirect or not for the given URL. And as I said, you can download the profile from Azure, and once you have that profile, it will be a file. You can add this to your publish options. You can basically add a new profile here, select import from profile, next. You can select this. You can select the file from your drive and then click continue basically and finish. And this will create this configuration that I have here. So I will select redirect using web deploy. If I publish this, Visual Studio will publish my solution to this specific Azure function based on the profile that I imported. All right, as you can see, we have successful. So now let's go to Postman and send a couple of requests to see how they are performing. So we can create a new HTTP request in Postman, specifying the URL of my Azure function, API get, redirect, and source. I will be testing home. I will be checking if I have a redirect for my home item. And if I click send, as you can see, it's coming back with 68 milliseconds, 74, 70, 68. If I click again, it's coming back with 59 again, 50 or 65. So I would expect again 50 milliseconds, maximum 100. If you really wanted to get to the lowest response time, you can bypass Azure Function and send your request directly to Redis. And obviously we'll be caching these responses on your front-end side. If you are using Next.js and you will be implementing this in your middleware, you can cache responses, so you can definitely cache them for like 30 minutes, an hour, and only refresh them after that, but you will maintain and manage all your redirects. So you will maintain and manage all your redirects in your Azure Function plus Redis Cache. So that's for today. I hope you've enjoyed this and you've learned something during this session. Thanks for watching, and I see you in the next one.